right, hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. We're going to go back, way back to just basic stamping pressure, okay? I received a couple of impressions back, and it says right here, I cannot get these to stamp. Can you help me out? I have tried StazOn, Memento, nothing works, okay? Now this is what someone's getting right here, okay? And I know exactly what this is immediately when I see something like this, okay? Someone has an uneven workable surface or something like that. Even if it's working on a table that seems seemingly flat or something like that, you really need some cushion underneath your materials, okay? I mean, I could probably get a good impression of this, and I'm going to use the same paper that they used here. Now, I printed this one right on the top there, okay, already, just to make sure. I mean, sometimes there's a problem with rubber. In terms of like a slight indentation, but it's like 1 out of every 1,000 stamps or something like that. There could have been like slight depression or something like that, but usually it wasn't really so much with the rubber, but it was something more like the mold or something like that. It just needed to be replaced or something like that. I don't know. It's really rare. Okay, so I'm going to use just VersaFine Clair here, and I'm going to purposely not use any cushion underneath this piece of paper that is theirs. Okay, so now this is a really large stamp with a lot of surface pressure, texture, or surface, texture on this. In other words, it's not just an outline design or something like that. So you want to use adequate pressure when stamping something like that out. And there you go, okay? That is an example of stamping it on just this flat surface right there, okay? Now, even using a lot of pressure, you can see I didn't get a good impression, okay? So what we're doing is we're getting some blotter paper underneath. Could be a magazine, newspaper, anything like that, okay? And it will contour to the bottom of a piece. Okay, now let me see this paper right here. This paper is a little bit creased and such as well. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to just take this, stand up, get good adequate pressure, especially in the center. Okay. And there you go. You have a complete impression, nothing missing in the center right there. Let's do this again. Now see, this one is obvious to me. There's something in their table or something like that where you have a slight indentation, could be even a 64th of an inch, but you have this area up here supported by this area down here, and it's not going to stamp in the middle there. Let's go with this one right here. So it was this impression. I already got an impression right here with the Bayou Hut. Okay, go like this. Let's stamp it on right next to this one right here. So you can even see it right here in their kind of side impression right there, okay? Go like this, stamping it out like so, no problem. And you can also see there's a ton of ink in here, so really quite blotchy. So a little bit too blotchy. This is a matte paper. It's not even a matte cardstock, so it's not getting a full impression. You can use something like this. A smoother paper is always going to be a little bit better, though, for impression quality. But, you know, I mean, people used to stamp on envelopes or things like that, too. Let's get another piece of cardstock, an actual coated cardstock here. Okay, now here's an example right here of the impression on a coated cardstock right here, done with the coloring video. I still need to finish that one off. Okay, but let's go in right here and let's do this again. Okay. Let's go on a really good stamping cardstock here. Coated cardstock has a clay coating on it. This one's matte, or it could be a semi-gloss, I'm not quite sure. Okay, let's go, just go right in the middle here, like so. Okay, there you have it right there. No problem. Yeah, I got a couple little spots in there where it might have not inked up adequately, but shouldn't be any problem there. In terms of the stamping, let's go with the Bayou Hut. I wouldn't really combine these two, but this is just for impression pressure here. You got that. Here. I mean, this one's really small, so you don't need to. I'm not even standing up for this one, you know. It just has adequate padding and contouring to the bottom of the page, and it is the same exact one that they stamped this one with. These are the same pieces of rubber that were sent back. She shouldn't have sent these back to me, but she should have just gave me the photographs of the impressions, because these are very, very obvious to me what's going on right here. See, there's a little bit of this interior right here too. It means that there's like, I don't know, there's a little bit of an irregularity on their table, especially this one right here. And again, it's not always visible to the naked eye. We don't always see that type of thing. I can't even feel it, like on my table when I took off this paper right here. I even have the grid on here, the self-healing mat down here. I mean, it could even be, you know, I don't know, a little piece of material coming off of a stamp pad at times. You could have, I don't know, just a little piece of something on your stamp itself, and it might not stamp out, okay, in that area, but it usually looks like a dime-sized area in there that's possibly not stamping out, okay? But let's see, let's go on here again. I'm going to try this, but I'm going to try it over this folded paper right here, okay? So not the ideal type of surface right here, because there could be some irregularities in there as well. Again, very large stamps. Adequate pressure overall. Go left, center, right, top, and bottom, and then just kind of give it an overall kind of padding on the inside, and let's see if we can get a decent impression on this uncoated cardstock here with a very large, highly detailed stamp right here. You get a perfect impression every time. All right. Now, like I said, when you stamp large stamps like this, stand up, you know. I mean, it's going to be very easy to get this type of thing right here. Let me see if I can purposely try to get that again, but even on this padded paper, okay? I can tell where the pressure is. It's like someone stamping like a wooden stamp or something like that, where you're supposed to be, you know, giving pressure directly down, but they're kind of holding it like this, okay? So pressure is getting up here and down below, but nothing in the middle there, okay? So let's try that right here, okay? So I'm pressing right here, and I'm holding this down like this, okay? So let me see if I can get something akin to that, okay? I'm going like this, and it's really hard for me not to press in here, because that's just, you know, the fundamental type of thing that you're supposed to do with that. Okay. It got in here because of my padding, but you can see where it's not, you know, adequately depressed in this area right here. All right. Now let me see if I can get one with this. This one's really small, so it's going to be hard to get a really bad impression with this, unless I just really don't press anything in the middle there. Let me give it a try here. Let me just go real fast. Well, okay, so it looks real splotchy because I just kind of pressed up there and I didn't press down at all. So again, it doesn't look like that right there. But that's on this type of paper too, okay? So this type of paper, you're going to be losing, it's porous, okay, and it's textured. So in a tonal design, you're losing about, probably about 25% of the image, okay? So let's do a comparison here with kind of a real kind of porous textured paper. I mean, when you go like this, it's not like it's rippled like a, like a linen paper or something like that, okay? But let's compare it to, a coated paper, okay? See that right there? Just a lot more crisp, right? And detailed in the impression. It's because this one is stamped in there and there's grooves in it, so it doesn't look as black, right? But it's also kind of bleeding out slightly with your tonal quality. I mean, like I said, if you're stamping this on like an envelope or something like that, envelopes don't have really high quality, pulp and density, and they're not coated unless you're making your own envelope or something like that. But it will spread out, okay, as well as miss some areas in there. So, coated, non-coated right here. I do think there's a charm to non-coated papers, but you have to take that in consideration too, and be careful about your, I don't know, your textures within that space, and so on and so forth. One of the things with a large stamp like this as well, I would trim these stamps a little bit closer if you can. I understand about being kind of careful about it. But let me just stamp across this one, okay? Now, I'm not doing it to try and stamp over this and match that, but let me just see on this piece of paper right here that seemingly has this big hole in it. It seems flat to me to the surface, but let me see if I can get this impression right in the middle there, okay? And again, if that's the case, it tells me about impression pressure and coverage, and especially what you're stamping over the top of like that, okay? There it is. No problem like that. Gave a full impression all throughout the center there, and that's exactly the spot that was missing in this image. So it has nothing to do with the paper, but pressure and having a little bit of a padding underneath it. So one of the things, I mean, if you don't have, the pressure and whatnot, you have hand kind of fatigue, joint fatigue, that type of thing. When you're stamping your imagery out, just compensate for that with the use of additional padding underneath, and the bottom of your stamps will contour to the surface that you're stamping it on much more adequately, and you don't need as much pressure because the bottom is molding to the bottom of your stamp, okay? So again, this is like stamping out like a real solid image right here. So I'm going to trim this up for her, and she should be good to go. This looks like it came out of a set right here. Okay, see, I'm kind of going in and out like this, just in case there's some over inking on the side here, and then when you stamp it out, you don't want that area to stamp out on the excess rubber there. Let's see. Yeah, this was one of the sets here. Otherwise, I would have put a code on the bottom of this. Okay. Cleaning it off there. Getting it nice and clean. I should say, this customer has been a long-time customer, and they're staying, they're on vacation, or I don't know if it's vacation, but they're staying somewhere right now, so they're probably not stamping on their regular stamping surface or regular stamping room that they've had. So, again, you're not going to run into these types of things, these types of issues like this, okay, with much smaller stamps, okay, because there's not that much stamping surface. So if there's a little bit of an irregularity in a table or something like that, a small stamp is only going to be so wide, so it's just not going to be supported. So let's say if there's a little bit of an irregularity in here or something like that, you have a larger stamp spanning that space, so you have this area that's kind of hovering in between. So it has to do with surface, and it's also, I mean, if you had something like this and it was just a little bit of a line drawing or something like that, when you're pressing on there, your impression pressure is getting distributed amongst a little bit of a line, like a linear design or something like that. So it's not going to kind of affect it as much as something that has all that surface quality, on it. You can see the only open areas are right in here and here. This is not a solid stamp, but it is a lot of detail that's been supported by imagery and tone next to it, okay, in the form of different values and a lot of little dots sticking up like that, okay? So you have to use that adequate pressure because it's being distributed amongst, several thousands of dots or something like that. All right. So just going back to the basics, I'm mentioning this quite often in my videos and whatnot. We have different videos on it too. Let's say someone has joint pain or something like that too, arthritis in the fingers or something like that. When it comes to larger stamps like this, you could just, I don't know, you could mount it on something. I mean, you can also just put it flat on a table or something like that. And I've shown this in other videos as well. But what you can do, let me see if I can get this right here. Okay, let's get this inked up. Okay. And let's see if I have my brayer here on the side. Okay, so you have one of these brayers like this, okay? It's a rubber brayer, but in this case, we're not applying ink to this brayer, but you could put, you can do an acrylic brayer or something like that, or a harder one. And you just put this wherever you want it to go. It's a little bit harder to kind of position because you have to kind of know where you want it. You can go vertical, horizontal. I mean, it's not that hard, but get it straightened out, okay? You lay this down like this, okay? And you go from the center out like this, okay? And hold this down, okay? Because you don't want this paper to shift. Okay, like that. And you go like this, and you have your impression quality. Looks pretty good, right? And there is very little pressure on this. So what you do is you don't go from this side over because this side's going to create a little bit of wave like this, and you might get kind of a blurred edge by the time it gets to the end of it. So what I'm doing is I'm going in here like this. Imagine the piece of paper's on top of it, and you're going like this, and you're holding it down over here, and you're going like this, and then you're holding the paper down this way, and then you're going like this, okay? So that you don't have this big, huge kind of ripple effect, like it's going like zip, like that over here, and moving across your rubber like that. So very little impression, pressure with this. In fact, you don't want too much. You want adequate pressure, but not just, you're not rolling out, cookie dough or something like that. Or, I don't know, be harder, something like pizza dough maybe, or something of that sort. Okay, so that makes for a very easy on the joints type of impression quality, okay? Almost looks even better, And it took very little pressure at all, and it seems to come out very evenly every time. And you don't really have to worry about, having too much cushion underneath it. I would probably still put a couple sheets or something like that, but I don't know. With the brayer, you don't really need to. This is sitting fairly flat. I mean, you can't have it, this on top of something like, it's completely uneven or something of that sort. But keep that in mind, if you have a brayer handy, it makes for a pretty easy on the joints application. Not so important, with smaller stamps, although this one is that size, but I can tell that, that table was completely inadequate in terms of that type of impression pressure like that. Okay, there was just something underneath it. I would think that's definitely on the title. I'm trying to think if there was something underneath their paper. I don't think so. And you know, when you're stamping on something like this, you can't have your papers kind of uneven. Now this is kind of, you know, here's a bunch of sheets like that. You know, you can't have your paper like this going over this ledge right here. Even like a single sheet wouldn't be a good idea to put that paper right down there and the stamp right over it. You could have this uneven type of thing going right through there, okay? All right, so anyways, impression pressure, you know, using some different sheets here and different types of papers. You can see a little bit of the difference there. There it is on this one right here. Here it is, quite a big difference, huh? Yeah, there was no pressure used in the center of this one right here. But if there was, it was table, like I said, irregularities and just not enough paper underneath. A newspaper is really fantastic, or something like a magazine, you know, if you don't have some blotter paper like a copy paper. All right, so anyways, that video is going out. Usually they say that, you know, if one person asks a question about something, there's 20 people that kind of have the same type of question but didn't ask. I learned that while working at Domino's Pizza in high school. All right, so anyways, hope this video comes in handy for anyone that, you know, there's a lot of people too, not this customer, but that haven't used tonal designs before. They've been using almost 100% outline designs, which have very little surface texture. And so there's very little pressure needed because it gets distributed amongst this really thin line, and maybe not large stamps too. So larger stamps with a lot of surface area. Keep in mind your padding and pressures. A lot of you used a MISTI too, or something like that. If you can have a little bit of a cushion underneath it, or, you know, I'm talking about just stamp positioners in general. Have adequate pressure underneath there, and use your pressure going across the entire stamp, even if it's on a platform type of thing. Okay, all right, that is it on impression pressure. And there's other videos on impression pressure too. If you type in Stampscapes and type in Stampscapes impression pressure here on YouTube, you'll come up with my other videos that go into it. And I especially go into something like the Seaside Cove Large, which is over a 10-inch wide stamp. And I show how to get, you know, adequate pressure using that, but also how to use the brayer, and how to also getting enough pressure is important, but how not to use too much pressure on small designs. All right. Drop a note if you have any questions.